The wine world is at a crossroads, facing shrinking consumption, climate pressures, and a changing relationship with alcohol. So where do we go from here? The solution isn't in defending old habits, but in embracing change. With innovative strategies, honest communication, and a willingness to challenge traditions. No change has ever been made without a revolution, without enthusiasm, and without sacrifice. And if you ever felt of giving feedback to an episode of Pinot Pixel, this is the best time to do so. So hit me up at podcast@pinotpixel.com or on Instagram, Pinot Pixel. And right now, let's go. Welcome to the Pinot Pixel podcast episode number 219, and this is a very special one. This one is dedicated to all the critics, the supporters, the undecided, and the fans. It's not about dogmatism, no blind defense of alcohol, no judging or demonizing of alcohol in favor of non-alcoholic drinks, and in addition, no support of mass-produced swill, just the idea, drink less, but better. So let's start with the problem. Alcohol and its defenders. Over the last 6 months, there have been so many articles, so many videos on social media, on YouTube, articles in newspapers, in whatever you can imagine, where people are either fighting for or against alcohol. There are people pulling out studies saying alcohol is bad for you. Some people are trying to defend that there are some studies showing that alcohol is good for you, but the truth is in between. The problem is that the lobby is very, very powerful, especially in the wine industry. So what we're currently seeing is an overreaction in communication that sometimes even ends up in stubborn arguments. And I was really looking forward to the conference that was held in Austria in November, where they wanted to talk about moderate drinking. I will put the link in the show notes, because when you read the article, you get afraid, because they were not only talking about moderate consumption. They tried to, but what they did is they just defended alcohol, the wine industry. It has always been here. It has to stay. We have to talk about the good things in alcohol, and moderate drinking should be the way that it is currently recommended. And the current recommendation says moderate drinking is 1 glass for women and 2 glasses for men every day. And there are some articles in between that say, okay, you can do it like this, but please skip at least 1 day a week. So you end up drinking 6 times a week and 1 day without alcohol. And I mean, I get it. It totally makes sense to me that an industry that relies on the sale of alcohol tries to defend their main asset. But this could happen in so many different ways as well, we will talk about in a second. We have to move beyond the justifying alcohol and instead focus on innovation and addressing the modern consumer's values. Period. And in addition, every now and then, there pops up an article where a 103-year-old woman or a 105-year-old man talks about how he or she survived over the last 105 years by telling the story that they were sipping a single glass of wine every single day. And of course, this can happen, but this is luck. The average life expectancy in Central Europe sits between 75 and 80 years, depending on what country we're talking about. So this is definitely an exception. And of course, some people claim that the alcohol is the reason for that, but this cannot be representative at all. There are hundreds of thousands of people dying every single year of alcohol, and nobody's talking about them. We just find this woman living in a retirement house telling, I had a glass of Chardonnay every single day and I turned 103 last week. I put the link in the show notes if you're interested in that. The problem is, just to give you an idea of moderate consumption in that specific case, let's say she had 1 glass of Chardonnay, 250 milliliters every single day. And let's even say it was really moderate consumption and she skipped every 7th day. This means 365 days a year, minus 52 days she skipped, 313 days, 250 milliliters. This is over 100 bottles of wine in one single year. So let's say she started at 40. 60 years, meaning 6,000 bottles of wine. And I guess I don't have to go on to show you how rare surviving that scenario might be with all that we know today. Still, my favorite quote ever given by Pip Klöckner in the Doppelganger podcast. Usually it's a tech podcast, but he has some strong opinions on wine and the industry in general. He said, with all that we know about alcohol today, if we have to consider whether to legalize it or not, we would definitely not do it. In addition to those examples every now and then that are pulled out by media to prove that you can survive and you can turn 100 by drinking wine. I mean, there is this quote, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, so you can turn 100 with having an apple as well. But maybe some people say that having an apple a day is not as much fun as it might be with wine. Who knows? Talking about the biggest myth in the wine industry, many people are trying to prove that moderate consumption, so a low amount, quote unquote, a low amount of wine is good for you because there is a substance called resveratrol, especially in red wine. And resveratrol is said to be good for your cardiovascular system, for your heart health, for just your general health. And it's an antioxidant, and it is found in so many different foods and drinks. And just to give you a feeling, 100 milliliters of red wine contain 100 milligrams, roughly 110, 120, depending on red wine, of resveratrol. Most dark berries, like elderberries or blueberries or blackberries, have 5 to 10x more resveratrol in it than wine. Cocoa powder, for example, is way more, and mixed up with 95% of milk ending up in 100 milliliter cocoa is still 2x the amount in wine. Same with coffee. Coffee has twice the amount of resveratrol in it. And 20 grams of most nuts cover the amount of resveratrol in a single glass of wine, 100 milliliters still. So yes, there is resveratrol in red wine, and there is resveratrol in other drinks and food. And there is even resveratrol in de-alcoholized red wines without the booze. And claiming that alcohol, and specifically red wine, is good for your health because red wine contains substances that are good for you might be correct, but considering the fact that there are so many other effects resulting in the consumption of alcohol, we should differentiate. Talking about addiction, talking about liver diseases, about cancer, about all this stuff. And just to put this on point once and forever, no study has ever proven that red wine is either good or bad for you in total. There are some studies pointing out the good, the benefits, and some are pointing out the bad things in alcohol. And we should consider all of them. And in the end, there's also the decision, what do I want to do to my body? And if I decide to drink a good glass of red wine every now and then, white wine, sparkling wine, whatever, just because I want to, and I'm aware of everything that comes along with it, and I'm also still able, this is very important, to control the consumption, then it's totally fine. If someone decides to live only up to the age of 70, but with a good amount of lovely red wine in their lives, why not? But talking about the awareness in society and in the combination with everything we know about culture and the development of mankind, we should rethink every now and then. And talking about the role of fermentation in civilization, a recent study from China brought out that they have been brewing beer over 10,000 years ago, and that specific event of discovering fermentation and the usage of the final product for ceremonies, for social gatherings, for cultural events contributed to the start of the civilization we know today. So wine and beer and just fermented drinks play an important role when it comes to culture. And products like that shaped human civilization, of course, but one that it needs to evolve with the times. I put the link in the show notes of the study because it was super interesting to read. And the study and the results suggest that the development of brewing technology wasn't just a culinary advancement, but a crucial factor in shaping early Chinese civilization and the global civilization. And again, looking at this from two different sides, imagine every moment in the future you're having a glass of wine or your favorite drink as a cultural ceremony with your peers only as often as it makes sense and it is fun. And taking this, that how human civilization was shaped, especially with the influence of fermentation and the discovery of beer and wine and everything like that, this also shaped a culture we are still trying to use as an argument in today's world. Oh, wine has such a big culture, we can't get rid of it. Even though nobody's drinking anymore, we have to tell the story of culture and why it is so important to drink. I don't want to bash people, and especially throwing out names that are acting like this, but I want to give you a very good example of how you can react to the current situation. It's a quote from one of the biggest names in the Italian wine industry, Piero Antinori. Quote, "New and old uncertainties affect the wine world, which has gone through a 2024 of ups and downs with a global slowdown in consumption and now faces inflation, wars, healthism, changing consumption, and climate change. But in my career, I have experienced many phases of crisis in the wine world. All of them have been overcome. This one will be too. There are many elements of concern and difficulty for the sector, but Italian wine has grown so much in quality, and there are so many markets in the world yet to be discovered and conquered. We must have confidence in the values of this product and believe in the future." So what he's saying is there have been crises, there will be way more in the future. We will overcome all of them. And in that specific case, we should focus on the quality, on the reputation we built to tell people the story of higher quality, of drinking less but better. This was my interpretation, but with the focus on quality, this should be the natural outcome, in my opinion. And especially the wine industry has shown over the last decades, over the last centuries, that they have the ability to adapt and to shift towards quality as a survival strategy. So we have to connect this to today's need for innovation and the interest and also the possibilities we have with modern technology, both in products and strategies. I'm currently working on a blueprint for wine marketing institutions, as kind of a strategy paper that offers concrete proposals for how we can navigate these turbulent times. Let's say I was inspired by a recent conversation on Instagram that ended a trial of a constructive criticism with me being banned from the comment section. A bit sad to see, but maybe, no offense, because especially when you try to push something and you are not well prepared for public communication, this might feel awkward or even bring people in situations where they don't feel well and they just want to stop. Totally fine. But if you act like this, or if you want to act like this publicly, you maybe should train your staff to be prepared for constructive criticism. There are also people who just got rid of the constructive and they just were throwing arguments, even wrong arguments, fake news, but they just wanted to bash, they just wanted to fight, argue. This wasn't my intention. And as soon as I have finished my, let's call it a paper, I will talk about that in a separate episode. And of course, I will publish it that you can read it and then some people can profit from that. And talking about one of the biggest factors, besides, of course, exploring non-alcoholic or partially de-alcoholized options, targeting younger audiences and stuff like that. The main role, in my opinion, when it comes to quality wine, drinking less but better, the whole storytelling around that, a key player is the specialized wine trade. The future of wine lies in quality, not quantity. Specialized wine retailers. I mean, I'm quite familiar with the German market, so let me just mention Weinkreis in Stuttgart or Garibaldi in Munich. They are focused on quality products. Some people might think, oh, well, this is so expensive. It's not. A good quality wine can start at 8, maybe 10 euro when we talk about inflation. Not more. We're not talking about the super premium 3-digit stuff. We are talking about everything that is crafted, well made, maybe even with respect to nature and not focused on just delivering a product that is high in alcohol. And again, if you want to get hammered, you don't have to buy wine. There is cheaper, easier ways to do so. I just would not recommend that. And don't get me wrong, I have been young as well. And between the age of 16 to 20, different times, I drank a lot. But still, the more I did, the more I discovered that this is not the right way for me. And this changed over time, especially when I came into wine and I discovered that wine is my passion, that everything excites me around wine. And this is still the case. I love wine. I love the stories. I love the culture. I love the people behind. This hasn't changed. Just the approach is a different one. And by prioritizing quality and craftsmanship, the industry can create meaningful experiences for customers and stand out in an increasingly competitive market. And I mean, acknowledging the hard truth, moderating consumption and focusing on quality means not everyone will benefit. Some businesses that rely on high alcohol, low quality wines may struggle to survive. That's the reality of any progress. And it's the same with every single challenge businesses and people are facing. For those willing to adapt early, there are still opportunities to thrive. The key is to embrace change and start evolving now. Not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, now. And you can still be part of the whole discussion, whether it's good or bad for you, what moderation really means, but start thinking about what you can change on your own for your business, for your life. The wine industry's challenges won't be solved by clinging to the past or defending alcohol. Instead, we must embrace quality, innovation, and honest conversations with consumers to build a more sustainable future. We can't afford to stay divided, defending alcohol's role with ignoring the need for change. So let's come together to chart a positive, forward-thinking path that benefits as many as possible. And if you're listening right now and you feel kind of sad or disappointed or even angry, let me close with an inspiring and optimistic message. The wine industry has always been about more than just wine. It's about connection, tradition, and storytelling. If we honor those values while embracing change, we can create a future that's not only sustainable, but also exciting. Whether you're a winemaker, a marketer, or a consumer, we all have a role to play in shaping this future. Let's make it one that celebrates quality, sustainability, community, and one that we're proud of. Thank you for listening, guys. Have a wonderful week. See you on Saturday with the weekly update. Ciao, ciao.